everyone. We're back together.
It's me and Pam.
Yes.
Pam and me. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yes.
We haven't done
Welcome.
this in a while.
I know. And we told you we would.
We
And
did.
yes. So here we are. And we have a great video for you today that has actually been on our to-do list for a long
For a
time.
while, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. And then someone recently, and I'm sorry, I forgot to write down your name. I so apologize. I'm really bad about that part. Just a few weeks ago, asked us to do this video, and I was like, "Ooh, yes, it's
I'm
like coming up."
I'm glad you remember that because I
You don't.
I think I missed it.
Mhm.
My bad.
She loves you anyway.
My
Yes.
bad. I do. I love you
So,
all.
yes. So this video is Mr. Ballen. What I saw in my room still haunts me.
Okay.
So, yeah. And before we go any further, please like, subscribe, share, do all that groovy stuff. It really
Yes,
helps.
it does. And I didn't tell Pam that I was going to say this, but I'm going to speak for her too. We
Oh,
really want to hit 5,000 subscribers, and we're
oh,
not there.
no. Right. Yes,
We really want to hit that.
we do. Yeah.
It's like a
Of like-minded people, by the way.
yes.
So it's always been our belief that we don't need everybody and anybody to come because we're first of all we're not everyone's cup of tea, right? But we
True.
have
Very
we
true.
have a message that is so different, but we know but we're having a hard time finding those people who believe in what we're
Yeah.
selling, right?
Yeah.
So those are the people that we want. And
Yes.
yes, we want to hit those benchmarks.
Yes.
So whatever you can do to help, we greatly appreciate it. We appreciate all of you. And
Yes, we do.
yeah, should we just go ahead and
Let's jump in.
let's just jump in? Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Here we go.
Where is it? I heard the door open. I heard the bells. I heard the pot. I heard the footsteps. I saw the door open. I see the thing walk in. I watched it walk down the aisle. I watched it bend over. It's in the room. Where is it? And this is night one. There's two more nights of this, and it gets worse.
Okay.
When I was 16 years old, I was an avid snowboarder. Starting from the time I was like 12 years old, I used to always go snowboarding with the same two guys, my two very close friends, Wolf and Nick. Every winter, me, Nick, and Wolf would go up to Nick's family's cabin that was up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Just snowboard, and it was great. Every time we went up to this cabin in New Hampshire, it would be me, Wolf, Nick, and then Nick's mom and dad. Unexpectedly, leading into my 16-year-old winter, Nick's father passed away. We were actually planning on going on a trip to the mountains that winter. And I remember speaking to Wolf and being like, I don't know if it's even appropriate to ask about this trip.
I'm going to stop. You already see where this is going, right? So I assume, and you should never assume, I know, but I wonder if he's going to assume something happening at the cabin and they're going to think it's the dad, right?
First thought I had when he said unexpectedly passed away. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll wait and see. But I do want to say, first of all, the fact that they're in the mountains, White Mountain, New Hampshire.
He said White Mountains. I got a chill
Really?
run down me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any mountains and New Hampshire, any of those states right in there. Woo wee, there's still well, any forested area anywhere is has some stuff going on, right? And okay.
I don't know why, but I think the mountain ranges on that are more east of our country have way worse things than the mountain ranges or the
Here,
forested areas and the mountain ranges on the western side.
yes, which is where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really kind of cuts down the middle of the country because it's kind of Midwest and then east. There's some shit.
Because I've never been in the mountains east,
Yeah. I have
uh,
not either.
but I have been in many a forest
Mhm.
in this side of the country.
Yeah.
It's just amazing
Oh,
in the
amazing.
best
Yes.
possible
But
way.
still, the sun goes down and you're in the woods. It still can be a really scary, especially because we lived in in Washington for when the kids were small, whatever, but it was kind of we're backed up into a forested area and we were like in Bigfoot country up there. So, and of course that plays on your mind
Sure,
a bit. So, but I love
sure.
Bigfoot. That'll we'll have to do some more some Bigfoot stuff. So,
Yes.
okay. Should we keep going?
Yes.
because we knew that Nick was very close to his father, and not to mention, like every time we went on this particular, trip up to the mountains, the Nick's dad was always with us, and it just seemed like, how can we possibly now go on this snowboarding trip? Not only is it a low priority item, but just the dynamic is all different now. Nick called us and was like, "Hey, so we are still going to do the snowboarding trip to the cabin in New Hampshire." And so, Wolf and I, we spoke and we're like, let's just go with it. I mean, maybe it's like, maybe they want to do something that maybe is a fond memory of their father, their husband. And so we agreed to go. So he passes away maybe a few months before we end up going up to the mountains. And so the grief was still definitely there, but also just again that the dynamic was it was like the elephant in the room, right? Like as we're driving up, we drove in the same car. Me, Wolf, Nick, and then Nick's mom was driving. It was so apparent that Nick's dad was missing.
Yes, the grief is still going to be there,
Oh yeah.
obviously. And the family really is going to be sort of reaching out. After a couple months, it's very possible that dad is actually, I don't know how long it was, but is going to be around. When we cross over, right? We stay sort of not like earthbound ghosty thing, but we stay kind of earthbound for a week or two after we leave our physical body, our deva, and then we go through a life review, we go through healing and all of that. And it's a couple of months. And so it is possible that dad, in his healed state, is with them in the car, right along with them. We're in
Absolutely.
the car on the way there.
Absolutely.
So them feeling dad, not only because they're feeling like he's physically not there anymore, right? He's missing. He could also be there and they really are feeling him.
Right.
Yeah.
Which in turn, if you're not, consciously thinking that or aware of that, that can trigger that missing them so much more.
Yes,
Excuse me.
absolutely.
It can really accentuate
Mhm.
that grief, that missing. Yeah.
Oh, I feel for the family.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay.
He was always in the car with us when we drove up. Anyhow,
Still
so we
is.
make the trip up to New Hampshire, and we're planning to be up there for 3 days. So the house itself wasn't really a cabin; it was a house. It was a small house. It was on a mountain, and if you think about the way a mountain works, it's a slope. And so, in order to have a house level on a mountain, a portion of it needs to be on stilts, right? The portion that's kind of hanging off the mountain. And then the other part of the house is kind of like embedded in the mountain itself. And when you drive up to the house, there's a wraparound porch that goes around the house. The majority of it is on the stilted section of the house, right? So if you're on the wraparound porch, your footsteps are going to echo. Like you can hear those footsteps because you're above the ground. When you step into the house, you open a door. It actually opens inwardly. There were sleigh bells that were on the door, on the inside of the door. So anytime you open the door, you hear those sleigh bells ringing. And as soon as you step foot into the house, if you took one step into the house, right? So you step on the wraparound porch, you open the door, sleigh bells ring. When you step into the house, your right foot would be in the kitchen. You'd be standing on linoleum, and your left foot would be on shag carpet, which is like the dining room. And that's the way the house is laid out. As soon as you walk in, kitchen on your right, dining room on your left. And if you keep walking, you're going to enter into this living room. And if you turned around in the living room and looked up, you would see a lofted second floor. If you walk into the house, again, your right foot's in the kitchen, your left foot's in the dining room, and you walked as if you're going into that living space, but stopped about halfway across the house, you could look to your right and there'd be one hallway. There's only one hallway. It's a small house. And this hallway is bringing you, call it, into the mountain. If you think about, again, the layout of the house, you have a portion of the house that's sitting in the mountain and a portion of the house that's on stilts. Well, this hallway leads into the section of the house that's in the mountain. And if you go down this hallway and it turns left, it's a short little hallway, it brings you to one room. And that room is where me, Nick, and Wolf would stay every time we went snowboarding at this mountain. That room, if you go into it, it's a corner-fed room. You open the door, and immediately to your right is a bunk bed. I would always sleep on the bottom bunk, and Wolf would sleep on the top bunk. Our feet would be closest to the door. In the center of the room, with the remaining space, because this is not a big room, there was like a queen-size bed. It was like a slightly larger bed that sat basically in all of the free space that was left over in the room. It was sitting right in the middle of the room. And that's where Nick would sleep. So basically the room was completely packed with 3 places to sleep and really not much else.
This cabin, this house, actually feels quite good thus far. Are
I
you?
want to see it.
Yes. He does a great job of, like, he's a good storyteller.
He's a very good storyteller. Yeah.
But the house doesn't feel, every house could use grid work and etc., right? But
Right.
it really feels like you can feel the love in it.
Mhm.
You can feel that sort of bouncy, like this is a great place to go type feel to it. Like hasn't been a lot of tragedy here. There hasn't been a lot of, not a lot of
Violence.
violence, right?
Mhm.
Arguing, any of that kind of thing. You can really feel that it's a really nice place.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can definitely feel all that in there. Want to throw that in there. Okay, here we go.
There was a very small space between the queen size bed and the bunk bed. So you could walk between those two, but that was about it. So that layout's very important, and you'll see why. We snowboard for the day. We come back to the cabin, and me, Nick, and Wolf decide we're going to crash super early and get up early and have a full day of riding ahead of us because we're avid snowboarders. So we go to our room, the one that's kind of, you go down that hallway and you get to the room I just described. We planned on going to bed early, but we were excited, and so we stayed up gaming for a bit. And then maybe around like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, Nick, who again is in the queen size bed, and Wolf was in the top bunk, they ultimately fall asleep. I was still awake. And what struck me, and it always struck me whenever I slept in this room, is when you turn off all the electronics and you're just laying in bed in this house, in particular, this room, it is pitch black. There's no windows. You're in the segment of the house that's, in the mountain. It is truly pitch black. Not to mention the house itself, there weren't really any neighbors nearby because this house, Nick's family had purchased it a while ago when this used to be an active ski resort, the mountain itself that it was on. But it wasn't anymore, and most people that were living there had left and sold their property. But a few people had decided to stay, and so Nick's family was one of them. So they had this cabin on an abandoned ski resort. There was virtually no streetlights, there's virtually no neighbors, and so at night, when you're laying in this room, like I was this night, you're really struck by just how dark and quiet it is. I mean, basically no white noise. I mean, silence and pitch black. And so I'm laying there. And one other detail that needs to be brought up before we get into what actually happens. So Nick had two much older brothers. They were in their 30s, and we're 16 years old. And we were expecting one of them, we didn't know which, to swing by the house at some point over the next few days. That's what Nick's mom had said. Nick had kind of reiterated it. And I think that Wolf and I understood that, now that Nick's father was gone, that they were just kind of trying to find a way to fill the void that was left from the father passing. And so we were expecting over the course of that weekend for someone, one of the two brothers, to come to this house and stay with us for a night or whatever it was. I had never met either of these two brothers. I knew they existed, but I had never met them before. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I know that probably one of them is going to show up at some point, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, whenever it is. Man, it's giving me goosebumps just thinking about this. That night, as I'm laying in bed, I'm thinking about how dark and quiet it is. I remember the only light in the room was the digital clock, the little red digital clock, and it was like a beacon in the light. And that doesn't emit much light, but when it's pure darkness, it does.
Can you pause for a moment?
It just
His anxiety level has like
Yes.
tripled.
Yes.
Tripled.
And you can feel it even more because you can feel the stillness of where he is, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the mountain, everything just gets so quiet and so
quiet.
still. Yeah.
And as he's describing how dark it gets in that room, the stillness was like palpable.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Even
Yes.
that there's so many nocturnal things.
Yes.
But there's even they have these moments of stillness to
Yes.
where it's like, I don't even know what word to use.
And then you add to it the snow, right? Because it's
Right.
time.
Right.
There's something about a blanket of snow
Oh
that
man.
calms everything down even more.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It muffles the quiet.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to say that. Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
It muffles the quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey.
So his anxiety was definitely worth mentioning.
He is absolutely reliving this.
Yes.
That is no joke. He is
No
not
joke.
making that up. He is not saying. And another thing that I was reminded of during this, he is a veteran. He was like special ops or
Okay.
Marine, or I don't remember exactly what, but we all know, I've said this a million times, I have yet to see a veteran, especially an active duty veteran, which he was active duty, who's not freaking psychic. They won't say that. They'll say they're intuitive or whatever, but they are. So you can feel that along with that as well.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, his channels are like floop, like little what is it, like
Little antennas?
Yeah, with the dish on
or
the
satellite
end.
dishes?
Yes, satellite dish. Yes. That's so awesome. Woo. All right.
Woo. Okay.
Here we go.
could not fall asleep. I remember I got to a place where I started counting how many hours of sleep I might get if I fell asleep right then and there, which is never a good sign. That means you're not.
Never.
If you're like, okay, if I fell asleep now, I'll get 3 hours and 22 minutes of sleep, right? Like that's where I was at mentally. At some point, I think it was around 3 in the morning, I remember looking at the clock and thinking, wow, it's gotten so late. I'm still awake. I hear footsteps on the wraparound porch. In a situation where, as I'm telling it, you're going to think, how did you not raise, a red flag immediately? In real time, in real life, your brain goes to great measures to convince you that everything is okay. It really takes an enormous amount of anomalies to stack up for your brain to say something's wrong.
Mhm.
And so that's what happened in this first night. I hear footsteps on the wraparound porch, and I immediately assume, even though we're talking, it's like 3 in the morning, I just assume that it's got to be one of Nick's brothers arriving to be a part of this weekend getaway.
Sure.
So I really actually didn't think anything of it. I actually just thought, well, when he comes in the house, if he happens to come in here to check on us, I'll just pretend to be asleep in case, he were to see that I was awake. I don't want to have a conversation with him. Number one, it's 3 in the morning. Number two, I don't know the guy.
I just have to stop. That is so, isn't that what we all do?
Yes. Yes.
Even us, who knows better? The first thing we do is we think of a physical reason for it to be happening, a human reason for it to be happening. And it's to keep us from going off the deep end into fear, right?
Yep.
Trying to make sense of it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I just had to toss that in there. There we go.
I'm just going to pretend to be asleep. So that's all I'm thinking about. Not worried, not scared, not anything. Footsteps on the wraparound porch. And then the door opens, and I can hear the sleigh bells that are on the door itself. I can hear those chime as the door opens. Again, no part of me is concerned about this. I'm thinking it's a little bit weird that they're arriving at 3 in the morning. But we knew that his brothers had these weird work schedules where they might show up in the middle of the night. So it was just, it was whatever it was. Sleigh bells ring, and then I hear what sounds like a pot, like a kitchen pot, fall and hit the linoleum floor in the kitchen. I remember just the sounds stood out to me. It just seemed like this person's kind of making a bit of a commotion in the middle of the night here. And the door didn't shut. And I noticed that. I figured they were maybe bringing their stuff in, right? They're offloading some stuff. And they're leaving the door open. Oh, just thinking about this, it's really making me feel
I want to ground him.
Yes, yes, you can feel it. We have to stop there before he continues on. Yes. I would say he knows it's something else and he's negating it and going with what's the safer option here?
Yep.
It's the brother coming in at 3 a.m., making all that noise and hearing the sleigh bells and the pot.
Yep.
Yes.
So funny.
Yes.
Well,
yeah, did you have something?
His amount of anxiety isn't funny.
No, and I'm not laughing at that. No. But that's the part. So the fact that he is sensitive, psychic, intuitive, whatever you want to say, his guard is up. He's immediately like up, and his antennas or his dishes are going around.
Yeah.
I did very clearly though see a man walk through the house.
Yeah.
But not in this house. I don't know if there was something before then, and I'll keep looking, or if this is someone there. It felt like, I don't know if there was a lodge there before somewhere, something like that. It honestly feels like the cook is coming in early in the morning, because that's when they start, right? They have to start baking the bread. They have to start put the soup on. They've got to start getting, whatever it is for, like the prep cook dude, right? For the day. That's what it feels like to me.
Okay.
That's what it feels like to me. And that could just be a vision that's coming in and has nothing to do with this, but it might. So as we go in further, what did you get when you heard him talk about coming through?
I got no information.
No information. Okay.
But yeah, male.
Yeah, definitely male energy.
Yeah, definitely male energy, but that's it.
Okay, let's keep going. Whew. All right.
So I hear the footsteps on the wraparound porch. The door opens. I can hear the sleigh bells. A pot falls and it hits the linoleum floor. The footsteps that I could hear on the wraparound porch, because it's on stilts, right? Like the porch is hovering over the ground. You could hear those footsteps. Well, when these footsteps continued into the house, where you're on a concrete slab and there should be no sound, like I shouldn't hear echoing footsteps, it sounded like it was on the wraparound porch still, but the noise was getting closer to me. So it was like the footsteps sounded totally natural out on the wraparound porch, but once they were in the house, it didn't really make any sense that I could hear them as if the footsteps were standing on something that was suspended off the ground, but it wasn't. You're in the house on a concrete slab. And so I hear these footsteps. The door hasn't shut. The front door is wide open. We're in the middle of winter here. We're in the middle of nowhere too. And I'm thinking about that, but I'm still thinking it's got to be Nick's brother, one of Nick's brothers. The footsteps continue through the house. And
I got to stop just real quick. He is a teenager, right?
Mhm.
So he was certainly already psychic before going into the military, let me just say. And then that just heightened him. But the fact that no one else is waking up, you can feel that this is within the dimensions, that it's not happening, that you can feel that we've been doing this for a long time, right? So I can feel that that's not a human doing that in a physical body, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I had something else to say and it left me for some reason. Maybe it'll come back.
Okay. What strikes me
Yes.
is his hyper awareness that the door hasn't closed,
Yes.
and yet he hasn't said anything about it getting cold yet.
Right. And in that small of a space, you think you would feel that
Mm-hmm.
that cold.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 3 a.m. It's freaking cold there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good point. And the way the footsteps sound.
Mm-hmm. The way they sound so similar, but yet different because
Yes.
they're getting closer. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
stop about halfway through the house. If you open that door and walk halfway through the house. And then the footsteps began to walk down the hallway towards our room. They come down the hall. And they get right outside the door, which is shut. The door to our room is shut. And I'm sitting there. Again, my feet are closest to the door. It's pitch black in the room, minus the, digital clock. And I'm thinking, why didn't they shut the front door? Of all the weird things that have happened, the fact that I'm hearing footsteps as if they're on the wraparound porch, but they're getting louder and moving through the house, the thing that really just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up was, why didn't they shut the front door? That just seems like such a bad idea. There's animals out there. There's a host of things out there. Like, why aren't you shut? And not to mention, it's freezing outside. There's a space between the bunk bed, the bottom bunk that I'm on, and the top bunk. There's a space that I can see clear as day. Whoever walks in the room, I'm gonna see them when they walk past the foot of the bed. But because of the top bunk, my view is actually obscured, and I wouldn't be able to make out someone's face, for example. I could really only see their middle section. And so when the door opens and this shadow figure walks into the room, which, by the way, I'm in a pitch black room, and I clearly make out a black silhouette. This thing walks into the room, and it's obscured, so I wouldn't have been able to see its head or upper body anyways, but its hips are so high that I can't even really see those. Those are at the level that I would expect someone's upper body or head to be at, meaning this figure that's walked in, its legs are extremely long. And so if it was proportionally the size of a human, you're talking about maybe a 10-foot tall person, but we're in a space that is not a 10-foot height.
Okay, I have to stop here for a moment. So
Okay.
that clearly says to me a different dimension, because the dimensions are stacked up on each other. So this figure is walking on the ground, but in a different dimension, so it's going to be up higher. And they often see people often see them as being really tall or really big or etc. But it's really because their floor is not where our floor is. If that,
Makes sense.
yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
yes. Right? Did you get anything else or want to point anything else out?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Because I'm not sure what I got is accurate.
Okay. And he is frozen in fear, by the way.
Oh
His
boy.
brain, his mind is moving, no doubt about that. It's moving, but yeah, he's yeah.
Yeah.
And so this thing walks in, and as soon as I see it, and I make out that black silhouette, even though it's pitch black in the room, I clearly see the silhouette that is unnaturally tall, combined with all the things that I've just thought about, mainly the door's still open. They've made kind of a commotion. I can hear these weird footsteps. I instantly was frozen with terror, frozen, petrified. I, well, one, I'm like, it's not Nick's brother. And if we're not talking about this is such a bad situation. Even if that's just some dude who's come into the house, that's a really bad situation. So no matter what, this is a really bad situation. But what I'm looking at doesn't make sense. It's an unnaturally tall person. They've left the door open, and I hear their footsteps all over the house. And it walks in past the foot of the bed. And I'm laying there, and I can't see higher than its waist because it's obscured by the top bunk. And this thing makes its like facing movement, like a military facing movement, and begins to walk down the aisle between the queen size bed in the middle of the room and the bunk bed where I am. And it's walking down right next to me, and I'm literally sitting there, unable to move. And I remember thinking, I can't do anything. I'm truly frozen with terror. And all I remember thinking is, whatever happens, just don't bend down and look at me. That will ruin my life. If this thing so much as looks at me, that's it, I'm done. So it walks down the aisle, it's right next to me. I'm literally frozen. And it does another quick movement, but it's facing away from me now. Facing towards Nick in the center of the room. And it bows onto and then down through Nick's bed and disappears. In the movies, in a movie, as soon as the ghost disappears into the floor, whoever's hiding would make a run for it. In real life, there's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as people disappearing into the ground.
Okay. All right. Before we go too much further there, that also right there says the different dimensions, because there's something there that he is used to coming into that space and then going. It does feel down, like maybe there's like he dipped to go into another room. There's a staircase. There's one of those dumbwaiters, something.
Right.
There's something there, but it's definitely in a different dimension. Yeah. What are you getting?
So what I had gotten that I don't think it's accurate, I don't want to use the word alien, extraterrestrial.
Okay. Sure.
It still could be even
Certainly.
in a different dimension.
Yep.
Absolutely could be.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not ready to abandon that.
No. No. And they what we humans think of aliens and what we humans think of ghosts cross over very often. Very often.
True.
Things of the earth as well. Like there's so
Sure.
many different dimensions and so many different, I'm going to say species of soul, whatever.
More than we know.
Yes. And they cross over and they can look like each other. There's all sorts of things. And I'm going to say to you when you said that, I got chills up my spine as, yeah, it kind of doesn't feel human.
It doesn't feel human to me.
Or like it was human.
Correct.
I should say.
Never been human.
Yeah. I'm going to absolutely. Yeah. Yes. However, has some sort of humanoid sort of structure, because
Yeah.
that much I get. And it's definitely male.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
'Cause- yeah.
When you said that going down, like maybe it was a dumbwaiter or stairs, that absolutely landed for me.
It could even be a tunnel. I don't.
Even oh
Sorry.
no. So I was getting like an escalator.
Yes.
But he had to diminish himself to be able to fit.
Yes. Like he had to duck. There was that feeling of I'm
Yep.
ducking under to get through
Yep.
to something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can kind of that, yes. I'm just going to say yes. That was, sometimes we'll say he wasn't ducking, he was doing this or that. This time I will agree with him that
Ducking.
there was a ducking. Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Ducked into something. Yeah. And it's definitely a different dimension.
Yep.
So, and he is not aware, whoever he is, this I don't know what to call him, this entity. I'll say entity because it doesn't feel human, is not yet aware that he has crossed through into another dimension and there's a teenager sitting there staring at him. Like he doesn't yet know that he has crossed over into someone's home, and the thing is that he's unaware at this point. Whether he becomes aware or not, that'll be, we'll have to wait and see. But it does it feel like to you that he's aware at all?
No.
No one except for this Mr. Ballen, and I don't know what his first name is. I think I've known it before, but he's the only one that is seeing both worlds right now. The other humans in the house don't, and this thing doesn't.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Zero awareness.
Zero. Okay. Are we ready? Or do you have something else you'd like to say? Okay.
Nope.
All right.
So I'm expecting this thing to just get back up again. I couldn't understand that it disappeared into the bed. That's not possible. Where is it? I heard the door open. I heard the bells. I heard the pot. I heard the footsteps. I saw the door open. I see the thing walk in. I watched it walk down the aisle. I watched it bend over. It's in the room. Where is it? And for hours, all night, I laid there absolutely petrified, expecting this thing to come back up and just look at me. That was my biggest fear, is whatever this thing was. I did not want it to look at me. So that was the worst. I'm laying there frozen. I can only move my eyes all night. Finally, I hear Nick's mom out in the living room making coffee. This was probably like 5, 6 in the morning. And it was like the first time that I'm like, okay, I'm safe now. Even if it's in the room, I'm safe to just go because I can hear someone out there. And I can hear her speaking. I knew it was her. And so I go right out there. And now you got to understand that even though this was a horrible situation that I still can't really explain, I know that she has just lost her husband. And so the idea of approaching this subject, which effectively is going to turn into ghosts, right? I've never had a paranormal experience before this. I've never had a paranormal experience since, right? Like I'm more or less a skeptic, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start talking about ghosts to the woman who's recently bereaved. It just felt really inappropriate. And so I was really struggling with how I wanted to communicate what happened. And so I went to the table, she got me a cup of coffee, and and we know each other well, she knows me well. And she definitely picked up that something was wrong, but didn't really ask anything yet. She was just kind of puzzling, like kind of sizing me up a little bit. And the only thing I could think to do was to just ask, hey, did either of your two sons, Nick's older two brothers, did they stop by at any point last night? Did they stop by? And she's like, no. Mm-mm. And I'm sitting there like, okay. And I'm just like, I must have had a reaction that was obvious. And she just goes, I heard my husband here last night too. And, you know, that made it a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because on the one hand, you have a situation where she is confirming something that part of me hopes is a bad dream.
Mhm.
Number two, she's now saying it's her husband. And so I intuitively assumed.
We knew that mom was going to assume that. We said that at the very beginning of the video, right? That she was going to say, it was my husband, which how often does that happens a lot, right?
It does happen a lot. And I'm gonna say he did visit her last night. Her husband did visit her. But it wasn't this,
But it wasn't this. No, no.
or it wasn't that, or
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe in a dream.
Yeah.
But I could feel the husband.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But this what John, I think is his name, right? Is feeling, or what he saw, not feeling.
exactly.
What
Not
he saw was not the
not
dad,
at all.
or the husband, whatever.
Not even connected a little
No,
bit.
no, no.
Well, okay. Maybe connected a little bit, but only because of the way energy works, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. Woo. Oh, and now he is in. You can feel his struggle because he's trying so hard
Oh,
to make sense of this. Was it the brothers coming home? He's trying to get a 3D answer to something that does not have a 3D answer.
yes.
And then, he is, and as a teenager, he's pretty sensitive to this woman, which is really nice,
Pretty amazing.
pretty amazing for his age.
Yes. Yes.
And then him really sitting there not knowing what the F to do.
What to do because he
What to
knows.
think, yes,
He knows what he saw.
That
That's
was
not
real.
this man I know and grew
No.
up with.
No.
No, that
I know
no.
it wasn't a dream. This was not a dream. This really happened. And now I have this woman who is grieving
Mm-hmm.
the loss of her husband, telling me, oh, it was, him.
Mm-hmm.
He knows this. Oh, the whole thing.
And
Oh,
I think
the
the
poor kid.
key word here from the woman is heard. I
Oh,
heard.
okay.
She didn't see anything.
Didn't see anything.
So she hears, she can feel her husband, however it was that he
Okay.
her.
Yeah.
So she puts together
And she
a
wants
story.
it to be her husband. And we talk
Mhm.
about that all the time. When you're grieving, that's often how, earthies or ghosts sort of take a stronghold in people's homes, is when someone passes away, when someone crosses over, that ghost comes in and pretends to be that person. And I mean, we've seen that so many times. They
Mhm.
take advantage, they manipulate
Mhm.
a grieving person.
Mhm.
Yikes. All right.
And I don't think this was that either.
What do you mean?
What John experienced, that entity
Oh,
wasn't taking advantage.
no.
It just happened.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
happened.
And it's, yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a routine there that it has the fact, and then that it went, yeah. Okay,
Yep.
let's keep going. I don't want
Okay.
I want to watch more before I say more.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
That she has somehow figured out what I'm stressed about, that probably isn't real. And because she's grieving, she's created a story where her husband is now in the house.
He's dead on.
Looking over us. I really believe that she didn't hear anything. That she just somehow understood that I had this weird feeling, and she turned it into oh, my husband's in the house.
I have to just stop there real quick.
Yeah.
He's incredibly intuitive. If in fact he was thinking that at the time, or is this now as an adult looking back? But if he was feeling that at the time as a teenager, wow. Most teenagers are not that sort of thoughtful.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be an ass, but boys as well. I mean, you add the boy factor in there.
Right. Well, you have 2 sons. You would know better than I.
Yeah. Yes. So pretty incredible that he came up with that, if in fact he was thinking that. But something tells me he was thinking that at the time. It may not have been as clear as it is today.
Sure.
At the time, sort of going through. Yeah.
I question his statement, though, of she didn't hear anything.
Correct.
I question that. I have no reason to believe that she didn't hear the same things that he heard.
Agreed. Yeah.
Because energetically, she was already attuned
Yes.
in the moment to the dimensions.
Yes. And for her to, like, I totally agree that he came through like her dream or whatever, but you're still sort of, she was sort of at that place where they come in. So there is a place when you're falling asleep. We've all had this stuff happen, and that's usually when people will see earthies, or they'll see crossed over spirits, or they'll see whoever. It's sort of right before you hit that deep sleep, and you're still sort of aware of the space that you're in, right? So I'm thinking that possibly could have been the space. And so she's feeling her husband, and she's hearing that, and just put them together.
Put them together. Her brain had to make sense of everything all at the same time. Yeah. Sure.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
And I just couldn't ask any more questions at that point. I felt like I had set her up for this awkward exchange. I felt really bad that that was the discussion we were having. I also thought if that's true, I don't want to have this conversation. I really was just dumbfounded on what to do in this situation.
Poor guy.
And this is night 1. There's 2 more nights of this, and it gets worse. So Nick and Wolf eventually come out of the bedroom, and they come to the dining room. And the same way I felt reserved talking to Nick's mom about what happened, I had the same feelings about Nick, because it was his father. And I also just felt like that would be inappropriate. But Wolf, he's not a family member, and he's my buddy, and I kind of pulled him aside, and I kind of told him what was going on as best as I could. I kept it kind of generic. I was like, I could have sworn I heard someone in the house last night. I could have sworn. And he's like, you're probably dreaming. That's what this is. And I was like, no. I wasn't, but I can't make sense of it. I was like, can you just do me a favor? And at this point, Nick actually overheard the conversation, and I very much kind of cut ties with what I was talking about. I was like, I just thought I heard something last night. It's just me freaking myself out. And I was like, can you guys tonight, when we get back from snowboarding, can I fall asleep ahead of you? That way, I'm asleep, you guys just fall asleep after I do, and then I'll sleep through the night, no big deal. And they're like, all right, weirdo, whatever. I was like, all right. My big plan is I'm just going to go to bed really, really early. Because I didn't sleep the night before, so I'm thinking, I'll fall asleep right away. So we go out, we snowboard the day, my mind is off of what happened, and frankly, I'm starting to convince myself that had to have been, sleep paralysis. Even though I'd never had that before, I was Googling some stuff, and sleep paralysis, maybe it was just like a really intense dream.
Okay. People, stop Googling shit. Seriously.
True.
Seriously. You
True.
get yourself in, people believe the craziest things from Googling them.
Yes.
It's bad enough that they're listening to ghost hunters who don't know what they're talking about. Then they start Googling sleep paralysis. That is not what that is.
No. No.
All right, here we go.
So funny.
I'm just like, there has to be something. Like this is just too weird. It has to be something explainable. Turns out it wasn't. We get back from snowboarding, and I am immediately going to bed. Pretty much immediately. It was like 6 o'clock. I was like, I'm going to bed. And I get in bed, and all I'm thinking about is what happened the night before, and I can't fall asleep. Eventually, Nick and Wolf, they come in the room, and they're trying their best to stay awake so that I can fall asleep, but it's getting later and later, and I can't fall asleep. And now I'm back to that, like, okay, fall asleep now. I got 6 hours of sleep. And they finally say, hey man, I'm tired, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
They both fall asleep.
We've all been there.
And I'm so
Counting the time.
upset with myself. Like,
All too often.
you screwed yourself. Why didn't you just fall asleep, you dummy? I remember the only thing that I did that really made this real, looking back at it, is I put a knife, like a kitchen knife or something, in the springs above me. So I'm in the bottom bunk, like basically right under the top bunk, I put a knife in there.
Okay, I'm stopping there. I can tell you have something to say. No, your Minnie Mouse can't hear you. If her voice goes up in volume to a certain, you can't hear it.
Oh my God. Okay,
Go.
what is he thinking he's going to do with this knife?
Yeah.
Because he knows
Yes.
This is not a human being
Right.
that is coming into the house and
You
walking
can
through
stab
his
all you
room.
want. Not going to do a damn thing. Yes. Yes. Poor guy. And
Oh my gosh.
that's part of the, right, when you're in that much fear, you think about, he's physically in 3D scared, thinking thinking something's going to,
Yes.
this thing is going to hurt him. Because if he weren't in all that fear and he could logically think about it, and if he believed that there's a ghost, he would know that a knife, a gun, a hammer, whatever, not going to do you any good.
Doesn't matter.
No,
It's not
the
gonna
least.
help.
No.
Oh, poor kid.
And yes.
Poor kid.
And then not being able to sleep, we've all been there, and that just makes things worse when you're
So
tired.
much worse.
And
Yeah.
Oh, and he's just waiting for it to happen again.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
And I'm laying in bed, and I'm constantly looking over at the digital clock. And it was probably around 3 a.m. It was late enough that it was like, okay, this is about the time that happened last night. And my heart just sunk when I heard those footsteps on the wraparound porch again. They sounded the same as they did the night before. I was like, that has to be one of Nick's brothers. The door opens, I hear the sleigh bells, I hear the frickin' pot fall on the ground. It was like deja vu. The exact same thing is happening. And these footsteps start walking through the house. And again, referencing how movies would portray this, the person who's me in the movie is like, okay, I'm gonna get this knife and I'm gonna position myself over here because I know what's gonna happen and I'm gonna protect myself. In real life, I'm like, this thing's gonna be in my room, potentially. It happened last night. It's apparently happening again. Please, for the love of God, don't bow into me the way it bowed into the floor the night before. Don't look at me. It will ruin my life if some entity just engages with me, just looks at me. That will ruin my life.
See, now he does say
walks
entity.
down the hall.
Yes, he does.
Does know.
Footsteps coming down the hall.
He just can't wrap
pretend
his
for a
brain
second.
around
Forget the paranormal
Yes.
aspect.
Yes.
Pretend it's the middle of the night in the
Now he
middle
did
of nowhere.
say
And
the wraparound. He heard all that the same. The wraparound porch, the sleigh bell.
is
pot
horrifying.
dropping. So
The footsteps
if,
come right outside the door, and I'm looking
if
at
I
the
were
knife
a ghost
that's
hunter,
right
or
underneath
even
the bed.
us sometimes,
And I'm
I
petrified.
guess we might
I
say
cannot move. I'm
it's just
drenched in
something
sweat. Just from the
on repeat.
few seconds that it's taken this thing to go from the door to the front of my bedroom.
What is that word I'm
Because I
searching
know
for?
what's
And I'm having
happening
a hard
again.
time.
It's happening
Residual?
again.
Thank
I'm
you.
not crazy. It's just happening
Yes.
again. What the
Yes.
F is this?
However,
And I'm petrified.
this is not.
I
it's
can't
not.
reach.
It's
I'm so
not.
worried about making any
It's-
noise that will
I
alert
think I
this
mentioned
thing
it
that I'm here.
earlier. It's repeating.
I can only move my eyes. And I remember
it's
even thinking
repeating
that
the same
I shouldn't
thing,
move my eyes
but
too
this
quickly
is
because
not
I might
residual.
hear that. Like, this
Not
is a
residual.
primal
So,
level of fear.
There was something he said
The door
about the
opens,
footsteps on
it
the
walks
porch,
into the room, goes right past the foot of
and
my bed, and
I
I'm
got
again,
this
petrified.
visual
It
of
walks down after
like a
making its facing
rift
movement. It walks down the aisle between me
opening
and Nick.
up.
Okay.
And I remember what happened the night
So
before,
a rift
where
or
it
a
folded into
tear,
Nick and disappeared. And I'm just
an
thinking to myself,
energetic disturbance through the
please
dimensions
turn
to where
bow into me.
what was
Please.
happening
Whatever happens,
in
just
this
don't do that.
other
So it
dimension
turns away from me
was now
and does the same thing
happening
it did the night
Yes.
before.
in
folds
his
onto Nick and
dimension.
disappears
Yes.
to the ground.
Yes. And they can,
Again,
depending on what the grids
even
look like,
though in
and
the
there's
movies,
some other
this
factors,
would be the
but
same
you
thing
can sort of
happening
walk
at night
in and
too.
out
It's the same
of
routine.
dimensions.
It'd be like, oh,
Or
the ghost is in the floor
within
now.
the same
I can
dimension,
go
there's
alert
even
the authorities because now it's safe. In
layers
real life,
there.
I'm like,
Sure.
where to go?
Yeah.
I know this
Yeah,
happened
that lands
last
what
night,
you
but
said.
it still doesn't make any
About the room?
sense.
Yeah.
It's in the room. It has to be. This is a real thing.
All
It
right.
came in the. This thing walks down the hall. And I hear those footsteps coming down the hall. And just pretend for a second, forget the paranormal aspect. Pretend it's the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere. And a stranger is walking around your house. That alone is horrifying.
Yes.
The footsteps come right outside the door, and I'm looking at the knife that's right underneath the bed. And I'm petrified. I cannot move. I'm drenched in sweat. Just from the few seconds that it's taken this thing to go from the door to the front of my bedroom. Because I know what's happening again. It's happening again. I'm not crazy. It's just happening again. What the F is this? And I'm petrified. I can't reach. I'm so worried about making any noise that would alert this thing that I'm here. That I can only move my eyes. And I remember even thinking that I shouldn't move my eyes too quickly because it might hear that.
I'm here.
This is a primal level of fear.
What?
It might. Oh my God.
It might hear him.
It might hear his eyes moving.
Oh, yeah. When I was thinking, and if this were a horror movie, he would actually probably be a girl in a slinky negligee. Because
Oh.
it's always how they do it in
Right.
horror movies,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, this poor kid.
Or yes, he would. To think that your eyeballs are going to make noise.
Yes.
Poor guy
That is some fear.
Yes.
That is some fear.
And it is. You can see it coming back in him now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oof. I
All
wonder
right.
what sound effects they would use in a movie
Yes.
of
The eyes.
eyeballs moving.
Sorry. I'm sorry, everyone.
like a clock.
Yeah.
Doc,
We
Doc.
do, we do have so much compassion for him. We
Yes.
really do. We really do. And our laughter it's part of it is when you've done this as long as we have, and we know he's okay.
Yes.
No, it was a long time ago, and he's reciting a story. It's there. You can kind of make fun, and we say it in love. We're not being
not trying to be an asshole at all.
No.
We know as he's telling his experience and we read that energy, we know even though he's in fear, he is safe.
Yes.
He is very safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
The door opens, it walks into the room, goes right past the foot of my bed, and I'm, again, petrified. And it walks down, after making its facing movement, it walks down the aisle between me and Nick. And I remember what happened the night before, where it folded into Nick and disappeared. And I'm just thinking to myself, please don't turn and bow into me. Please, whatever happens, just don't do that. So it turns away from me and does the same thing it did the night before, folds onto Nick and disappears into the ground. But again, even though in the movies, this would be the same thing happening, night 2, it's the same routine. You'd be like, oh, the ghost is in the floor now. I can go alert the authorities because now it's safe. In real life, I'm like, where did it go? I know this happened last night, but it still doesn't make any sense. It's in the room. It has to be. This is a real thing. It came in the room. It's somewhere. Is it under my bed? Where is it? All night. All night. I lay there. This is the second night that I've not slept. When I heard Nick's mom out in the other room, it was like such a relief. Because I didn't give a crap at this point about being polite. I wasn't gonna try to, distance myself from the conversation around ghosts. I was gonna go out there and be like, what's wrong with this house? And so I hear her and I go right out to the living room and I tell her everything in as acute detail as I possibly can. And as I'm telling her this, her reaction didn't line up. Her reaction was not surprise, terror, confusion. It was empathy. She felt bad for me. It was sympathy. You don't understand. I'm listening, but you just don't understand what's happening. And I'm telling her all every detail I can possibly muster. And at the end of it, or towards the end, she just kind of stops me. She's like, John, I told you yesterday, and again, I heard it last night. That's just my husband. I heard him last night too. You got nothing to worry about. And I was like, no. No. That cannot be what it is. And she was like, I heard him open the door. I heard the pot fall. I heard him walk through the house. I'm assuming he went into Nick's room again with you guys. And I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So totally now just beside myself. I remember I was crying actually. During this conversation, I'm just crying. Not even tears of sadness as much as just what's happening.
So that poor woman, there was real more sympathy than empathy, I think. She was trying to comfort him, which was really because she thought it was something else. But in reality, that made his situation just worse.
Worse. Yes. Yeah.
Trying to tell him it was this when he knew it was this. So that had to, I can see where the tears, I could see absolutely where he'd be crying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The confusion.
Yes.
Well, the confusion got compounded.
Yes.
Because now he can't argue with her. I mean, yes, he can say no.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to change her mind.
No. Woo! What a bad situation. This poor kid. Really, a teenager. What was he, 16? He said 15, 16?
I don't remember how old
I don't remember either. But certainly teenager. That's young.
Yes.
And he's so confused. Yeah. And she was trying to help that poor woman because she really believed that. She really believed it was her husband and everything was
yes. Yes.
Whew.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I needed my mom. I felt so helpless. And no offense to Nick's mom, but I just felt like I was with a lunatic. How? But at the same time, she's recalling the exact same things as me. How do I put that together? I remember thinking, I need to leave. I need to get out of here. I can't be here anymore. But then I thought about how am I going to make this happen? Nick's mom and Wolf and Nick, they're not leaving today. And it was pretty clear that Nick's mom liked the fact that she, heard her husband walking around the cabin. She's not trying to leave.
Yep.
There's one more night that we're here, and I would have to tell my parents to drive, my mom or my dad, to drive to New Hampshire and come get me because I'm seeing ghosts. Like, this is a trip that I loved. I looked forward to this trip every year. It wouldn't have made any sense, and they would have been like, what's wrong with you? And I honestly was not prepared to have those conversations with my mom and dad. I was not prepared to be like, let me tell you about the ghosts I saw for the past 2 days.
And I'm going to stop here. Let's talk about this for a moment.
Okay.
There are different types of parents, and this is where we talk to all of you so often. It's very possible that his parents would have, okay, I don't believe him, but had, compassion for him, would have taken him home and would have just allowed him to be, just allow him to feel what he's feeling. He's scared. Okay. Which is how you should be. But too many parents do what he's afraid of. They poo-poo you. They tell you you're crazy. Oh, what have you been taking something? A teenager, you might even go to,
Sure.
been smoking, or what did you take?
What did you take? Yep.
Yes. And then just kind of poo-pooed you and rolled their eyes and whatever. So we always talk about, even if you don't believe your child, pretend like you do. Because if your child is really in fear or not. They can't fake that kind of fear. As parents, we know. Even, you're close to nieces and nephews. If they're really in fear or not. So I just wanted to sort of bring that up, because that is something that we talk about a lot, because it happens.
Yeah.
That parents poo-poo it. And, I've talked many times. My kids had, especially the one, had many paranormal experiences. And I would just listen, and I might ask a question or something, and then he'd just go, and then he'd just run off. And it never scared him, because I never made it a big deal.
The unfortunate piece now is that it is so prevalent everywhere.
Oh, and it's gotta be a demon.
Children have access to all of this, information. So it doesn't take a whole lot for their active imaginations to spark fear.
Yes.
And as an adult, we have to do the best that we can to not negate the child.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And another piece of that, they're on YouTube, they're watching ghost hunters. I think the biggest section of the population who watches ghost hunters are young people. And they're very impressionable, and they believe, and boy, if those boys or girls or whoever that's talking, those ghost hunters, if they say something, these young kids take it as gospel. And it's almost always a demon. It's almost always going to be something that's going to hurt you. Like the whole knifing thing, yes. Yeah. It's not, Ooh. Anyway, back to the part, if you have children, believe them. If they say they saw something, just believe it. And I'll tell you, if it's not real, it's just, it'll just sort of, they'll stop. They're trying to get a need met. If they're lying about it, it's because they need the attention. They want you to sit with them. They're trying to get a need met. So, however, whether it's true or not, does it matter? They need you to sit with them for a little bit.
It's true. Yep.
All right. Here we go.
Okay.
And so I was just kind of resigned.
Poor kid.
And decided to stay. In retrospect, I think I should have called my parents and been like, that's what parents are for. Like, get the hell up here. It doesn't matter why. Come get me.
And they would have.
It was such a confusing moment that I had no blueprint for how to handle. So I just stayed. Nick and Wolf finally get up. And I remember I made the decision as I was sitting there thinking about what's happening is Nick's mom is reassuring me, about her husband being in the house. And I make the decision that I'm going to stay. Nick and Wolf come out of the room, and they come over, and Wolf pretty much immediately looks at me to get a gauge on what happened. And you can see it all over my face. I'm crying. And I told them what happened. And, Nick was always kind of a stoic, and he was just unaffected, Wolf, on the other hand, was more inclined to, at a minimum, believe something was happening. He didn't know if it was a ghost or not, but he certainly understood that something's going on. And the fact that Nick's mom, as I'm explaining to Nick and Wolf what's going on, she was like reinforcing my argument. Yeah, I heard him too. I heard the door open. Yeah, I was upstairs. I heard him walk through the house. And Wolf's like, what's going on? And Nick is like, he didn't want to hear it, kind of. It probably was uncomfortable. It's about his father, or ultimately talking about his father. Before we went out snowboarding for the day, because Nick's mom would drive us and drop us off, she brought us to a local store, and we bought a coffee table because they'd been looking to replace the one that was in their house. Basically, when you walk into the house, instead of turning down the hallway towards our room, if you just keep walking into the lofted area, at the foot of the stairs was a coffee table where they kept a landline phone because you're in the middle of nowhere and you got to have some way to call, and they put it right at the foot of the stairs in this little coffee table. But it had broken, or it was old, or whatever. I know that they wanted a new one for a long time. We went out and got it. Me, Nick, and Wolf, we go, we snowboard. We come back, we help offload the coffee table into the house. We put it at the foot of the stairs. And that night, we go to bed. I was ruthless in trying to keep Wolf and Nick awake. I mean, I wasn't even trying to make jokes out of it. I was like straight up kicking the bunk, like kicking Nick Wolf's bunk, like literally shaking Nick. I was doing everything in my power to keep him awake because I couldn't sleep. I'm terrified. Yeah. I'm terrified. It was like the opposite of how excited you get before Christmas and you can't sleep. Mm-hmm. It was like the opposite of those feelings, but you still can't sleep. It was like, this is the worst night of my life. And also, the nail in the coffin, if you will, is during the day that day, we found out that neither of Nick's two brothers were going to be making the trip. They weren't going to make it. So no one's going to be at the house. No one should be at the house except for us. So that night I'm laying there, and after all my attempts to keep Nick and Wolf awake, they fall asleep. Everyone's asleep. The house is pitch black. It's silent. And around 2, 3 in the morning, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah. I got to stop. That poor kid. Traumatized. Oh my gosh. That poor kid trying to keep his friends awake. They're tired and they don't really believe him. He's in this situation where he's just not believed. He knows this thing is going to happen again. Mm-hmm. Oh boy.
He has no recourse whatsoever.
None.
No.
All right, let's keep going.
I hear those footsteps on the wraparound porch. The door opens and I hear the sleigh bells ringing on the door. A pot falls on the ground and the footsteps walk into the house. And this is the third time that this has happened. So in a way, this was the first time that I was expecting something to happen. I
still wasn't a pot.
I had a little bit of, call it security.
It's not a pot.
That something was going to happen, and I understood.
The closest thing he can think of to what that sound is, but it is not a pot.
This was not.
I agree with you.
Guaranteed.
Walked into the house. Everything was the same.
There is something else that is happening in that dimension.
It kept,
but it's not a pot.
Into the lofted area, and the lofted area
could even be a door.
My foot's at the door.
A door closing.
Here. The wall straight. If I
some
sat
kind
in
of
bed
clanking.
And looked straight,
something.
The wall right there led into
opening.
the area.
Yes, yeah.
Something heavy.
I'm basically, if there wasn't a wall, I'd be looking dead at this thing.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for it to walk down the hall, to come into the room, to come next to me, fold into Nick, and then that's it. This was the first time I had a little bit of, call it security. that something was going to happen. I understood what was going to happen. I didn't understand it, but I expected something to happen. But this was not the case this night. It walked into the house. Everything was the same. It walked into the house, but instead of going down the hallway towards our room, it kept walking into the lofted area. And the lofted area, from where I was laying, my foot's at the door, my head's back here, the wall straight, if I like sat up in bed and looked straight, the wall right there led into the area where this thing was. So I'm basically, if there wasn't a wall, I'd be looking dead at this thing. And I'm waiting for it to walk through the wall. As crazy as that sounds, I'm just anticipating something coming through the wall.
Sure. Boy, is he
After a
scared.
long pause, of it being in that lofted area, I hear it go up the steps.
See, this shows you right here. It's not residual, like we thought.
Right. Not at all.
Yeah. It's changing direction, or it's doing something different.
So the fact that it's doing something different has me curious if it is now aware of the dimension that it's in. Because the first 2 nights, on the second night, he was like, please don't turn towards me and come into me. And I'm thinking, he's not aware of you. He's not aware that Nick is even there. He's just doing what he does.
Yes.
And he wasn't aware of that. Now that he's changed, there's this feeling he might have this awareness that he's, oh, this is different.
I would say the consciousness shifted. So that vibrational, no one had been there for a while, right? This is just a cabin. They don't live there. It's just on occasion
right
up there or whatever. So the rift happens, it has its routine and it does it and no one's there. And then all of a sudden now something's a little different.
It's like, what?
Yes. I still can't say that this entity fully understands that there's someone else there.
I would agree with that.
But something shifted.
But something's different.
Yeah. Something's different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's not much time left, so something's got to happen here.
Okay.
All right.
Listening to the creak of the steps as it goes up the steps. It makes my skin crawl. It's making me like emotional thinking about how terrifying.
Yes. Did you want me to stop?
Now, this poor kid, he's not only afraid for himself.
Yes.
Now the fear that this thing is going after Nick's mom.
Yes. Yes.
My head is just pounding.
Yes.
Like I can feel his heartbeat.
And then his friends are asleep, right? Nick and Wolf are asleep.
Yep.
So what is he going to do? He's got that knife, I assume is still there, but he knows.
I would imagine the knife is probably still there.
He knows he can't really do anything about it. Right. Yes.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And then his mom's still thinking it's the dad. And it's like all of this stuff. And why the hell did I call my parents? And the confusion.
The panic. And the,
all
oh
that
my
stuff
gosh.
that's going through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, let's keep going. Poor kid.
Walks up the stairs, and now it's above me. And if the past 2 nights are any example, this thing has sunk into the ground 2 nights in a row and disappeared. And so now my fear is it's going to literally come through the ceiling, through the bunk, onto me. The sound stopped when it was upstairs. Got upstairs, and that's where Nick's mom slept. She was upstairs. So I laid in bed, petrified once again. I got my stupid knife sitting in the underside of the bed above me. And hours and hours of waiting for my literal worst nightmare to come true as some entity comes through the ceiling and goes into me, or even just if it was like onto Nick, if it came through the ceiling and if out of my peripheries I'm watching like this beast come through the ceiling and float down and into Nick. It just, all these thoughts in my head, they didn't make any sense. They were terrifying, but they were happening. I laid in bed and I couldn't fall asleep. I was now coming up on 3 days without sleep. So at some point that night, I did fall asleep, probably just out of sheer exhaustion. At some point in the morning, early morning, now probably like 5 in the morning, I wake up again and I can hear Nick's mom. It didn't sound like she was making coffee. It sounded like something was wrong. I couldn't place it, but it just sounded like she was acting emotional somehow. I couldn't tell if she was crying or not. But now it's like it's the morning, it's my last day, I'm leaving today, I'm up, I'm out. And as soon as I walk out of the hallway and I look to the left into the dining room where I expect to see Nick's mom, and she's not there. And she's actually over at the foot of the stairs in the lofted kind of living room area next to this new coffee table we had just put in. And she's standing over this coffee table at the foot of the stairs where the entity had been the night before, the one deviation from the other 2 nights. And she's crying. Come here. She points to the coffee table. And she's down on her knees looking at the table. And now I can tell she's probably crying tears of joy. Because scratched into the coffee table were the words, "I love you." I was like, I'm done. That ended my friendships with certainly Nick. Wolf to a lesser degree, but I stopped snowboarding. I didn't go back to that cabin, even though I know Wolf did the next year. The theories about what happened, Nick's mom, it's possible she could have created a narrative, made it about her husband, and then she could have just as easily scratched that into the table. The "I love you," that could have been her. It's also possible that she had sleep paralysis and I had sleep paralysis, and somehow we synchronized and had the same vision and she scratched in the table. Or, to be honest, what I believe, that was a ghost and that it interacted with the physical world and it did walk around the house. It did carve "I love you" into that table. That's the only time in my entire life that I've had anything happen like that. I don't have any other paranormal stories before or after. That's it.
To say and you can, the "I love you" on the table, we might have different thoughts on that. Something tells me it was there and they didn't see it already when they bought it.
That is exactly what I got.
Yeah.
Exactly what I got. That it was there.
Yeah. And they just didn't see it and because she wanted so badly to get a message from her. It
Yes.
was so understandable. So
Yes.
understandable. Yes. I do think all 3 nights were the same entity. It just changed course that 3rd night.
Agree.
Um,
And I still stand by the husband did visit her the first night.
Yes.
I stand by that.
Yes. And possibly he visited her more all 3 nights.
Possibly.
Certainly in her dreams or something, like there could have been that, but it wasn't, because what I'm getting now is someone's going to say, well, it was the entity the first 2 nights and it was dad the 3rd night because it changed. I don't get that at all.
I don't get that at all.
I do
I get dad the first night only.
Okay.
Could he have come? Sure, absolutely.
Sure. Or in some, yes. Yeah. Wow, that was really good.
That was crazy town.
Yes. Thank you.
What a shame that
yes, I know where you're
that
going.
ended his snowboarding.
Yeah.
It ended the friendships.
Yes.
And at the same time, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I do want to say this. I know I've talked about it. Please be open to your children speaking to you about, I know that he said this was the only time that ever happened, whatever. But if there is a conversation, to be open to hearing what they what I'm please know I'm not blaming the mother. Okay, I'm really not. However, had there been a conversation and she not said, "Oh, yes, that's my husband," and just listened to him, things could have maybe been different. I don't know. I just think of my own kids, and this is for all of you that have children, who have nieces and nephews, who have, grandchildren, whatever it is. When they come to you with a ghost story, listen, do not negate it, and let them know that you believe them. Don't try to change the story or make it different because you're uncomfortable or you want it to be a
Sure.
just listen. Just listen and make it comfortable for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I am not blaming this woman at all. This woman, she was grieving still.
Yeah, she fully believed
Yes, absolutely.
that it was him.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Woo, that was fabulous. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Um, I got nothing else
Yeah.
around it. I was really hoping to have gotten more.
Yes.
The coffee table, I'm a little bit sad that we got the same information.
I was really hoping you're saying, you know what? That's not what I got at all.
Mm.
Whatever. Yeah.
I was hoping that's not what you were going to say. I
Yeah.
was hoping you were going to say
Yeah.
something else and I could say, "Oh, yeah, I was thinking maybe it was already there, but I don't think that's right."
And then I said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also thought there was a bigger climb. I didn't get
I
that was going to be the climax of it, that he was done.
no.
It was over. I thought he was going to say it did something, and then everyone saw it this time and everyone, but that's not what happened, because this isn't a movie and everything's not wrapped up all nice and pretty at the end.
No.
Right. So,
No.
well, thank you, John.
Oof.
Now we know his name.
Yeah.
This was a great story. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for allowing us, there are no copyrights on it, so we were allowed to go ahead and
Allowed to do this. I
yes.
do want to say one thing about paranormal experiences.
Mhm.
You can go through your life having one.
Yep.
You can go through your life having zero.
Mhm.
You can also go through your life and having them at every freaking turn.
Yes. Yes. Some of us have that.
And I guess it's more on the lines of even with your children. Really, when somebody shares an experience that is so unbelievable, why? Why not? Why is it that everyone believes that what we perceive in our human lives is the only possibility?
Right. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Um, had he felt safer,
Mhm.
and again, not blaming anybody,
No, no.
but our society in general, if there had been more acceptance about him sharing his experience, could have been really different.
Absolutely. And even with, on one hand, like ghost hunters have brought forth, so more people believe, right?
Right?
Yet at the same time, ghost hunters most of the time are wrong. And they're bringing in fear and that
Yes.
point of view. It's there's a lot to work through here, but yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there
I
is.
had experiences as a kid. It wasn't until I was an adult. I think I had one or two as a teenager or something. But really it wasn't until, yeah, until this happened.
Yeah.
My
I
life
had a
just,
few. I
yes, you
had a
did.
few as a child.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think I had more than I actually remember.
I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah. So,
All right. So everyone is
anyway,
different, I guess, is the purpose of that
yep.
conversation there. We
Everyone
all
is
do it
different. And
differently.
not everyone does experience.
No, or reacts the same or whatever it is. But just if a child or a person, not even a child, anyone comes to you and shares a ghost story, listen to them. In your head, if you want to think they're crazy, fine. but don't give them that, um, what your belief system or your opinion. Just let them talk, acknowledge
Yeah.
it, and just let it be. Don't
I
don't
want
try
to
to throw
say,
your fear in.
yeah, I want to say hold space for them.
Yes.
And I know some of you are going, yeah, but I don't know how to hold space. Well, everyone knows how to hold space. It's being present,
Mhm.
it's listening without judgment, without interjection.
Yes. And paying attention to them. You're not on your phone, you're not looking around
Right.
the room, you're present for them.
Present, paying attention,
Mhm.
um,
Yes.
interacting, sure, but not interjecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, if you haven't already, please subscribe,
Yes.
like this video, share it, give your suggestions, your comments, whatever. We do read them and we
Yep.
love to read them.
Put those in the comments. We love
Yes.
them. We love them.
Yes.
Please don't put links in the comments because those will get removed.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
Yep.
you can email links to us, or in the comments just say the channel name and the exact title, and we'll
Yep.
find it.
Yep.
So,
And
and
you
we
can
have
find
a
us.
long list,
We do
but,
have a long list,
but
but you
we're
know,
getting there. Yeah, and our students are doing some now, so we will
yeah,
get there.
it
So,
is great. You can find us at tcseverydaypsychics.com.
yes, you can. And if you want to hear
Yes.
more personal stories and just more of the spiritual piece, the Conscious Spirit podcast here
Yes.
on YouTube and wherever you listen. So,
Wherever you stream. Yeah, yes.
all right. And thank you, John. Great video.
That was a great video. Yep. Yep.
All right.
Great storyteller. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.